Here.
Mr. Deschaux,
Here.
Mr. DeLauder,
Here.
Mr. Eifert,
Here.
Mr. Emig,
Here.
Mrs. Herman,
Here.
Mrs. Murphy,
Here.
Mr. Rawhauser.
Here.
8 present.
Thank you. First up, we have our report from our Student Board Representative, Naya Allen.
Good evening, everybody. So a couple weeks ago, we had our Unity Day. This was something new this year. We had volunteers, so student volunteers, go out and write positive messages on the sidewalk with sidewalk chalk. I participated in that with my best friend, Brooke. And it was just a nice, simple act of kindness. And as the students left, they could see kind words like "you matter," "you're beautiful," just kind of that nice positive thing before they go home for the day. We also, previous this week, we had the Powder Puff game. I had a blast with it. Although I didn't participate in the game, I did attend it with my friends to support Brooke again, who I just mentioned. But the seniors and freshmen won. So, I mean, what's to be expected? The seniors is the best class. So it was great to kind of get that normality back again. I loved Powder Puff my freshman year, so to be able to do that again and see all the girls have fun was just great. And the cheerleaders were top-notch, amazing. It's on the school page, but I think it was the first quarter show was definitely something you don't want to miss. You definitely want to go to the page and see that. Last Friday, we had our NHS inductions. I am the NHS president, so it was kind of nice to kind of induct, my fellow peers into such a prestigious organization. And it was just kind of nice to see their parents, happy, and just everyone there just on a great night. And then that following Saturday, we did Habitat for Humanity, so we went and built a house. It was definitely something out of my element. I'm not much of a builder, but it was really fun, and I had a great time. The weather wasn't perfect, but it was just a great experience, and I got to do it with some great people. We also had the 76ers trip for DECA, and we go to the Wells Fargo Center, and we listen to a panel of business professions, and they just tell us, what their job is and give us advice. So even though, some students may not want to go into business, it's a great educational trip. They tell you how to make, how to network, just to get your name out there and really just stand out when you go and apply for a job. We also get to watch the 76ers play, which was my favorite part, because it was nice to kind of see an NBA game, and the energy was amazing. Everyone was cheering. So it was just a great night. And that's it. That's really what's going on. Does anyone have any questions?
Everybody? Great. Thank you. Thank you, Naya. Okay, moving on in our presentations, we have our fall athletic recognitions. Dr. Wiesling.
Thank you, Mr. Eifert, Dr. Cartwright, and Board of Directors. This is our opportunity to culminate our fall season. We had our fall awards program last week, and all of our teams and coaches were recognized for the accomplishments they made this season. But we also are fortunate that we have some of our individual participants who exceeded regular season expectations and advanced onto some of our postseason level competitions. So this evening I have Coach Chuck Jordan from our golf team to say a few words and talk about 2 of our golfers who advanced. And then we have Coach Jen Miller, who's here this evening to talk about 3 of our cross-country runners who advanced onto postseason competition. Coach Jordan?
Thank you, Troy. First off, I'd like to thank the board for inviting these student athletes and recognizing their achievements in this past season. I was here last year with Trevor, and thankful we have another one to bring this year. So we have 2, and I'm thinking might be 3 next year, but we'll see. Both these young men have shown their dedication to the game. I am a big proponent of work ethic and manners. These 2 young men display a fine work ethic, and their manners are excellent also, which to that I commend their parents for the job they've done bringing them up this far. I couldn't ask for more. This year, Alex, this is Alex's 2nd year of playing golf. I don't know how many golfers are here, but it's not an easy game. this is Alex's second year. He qualified for counties this year and went beyond counties and made it to districts, which I think is awesome for someone that's really in their second, maybe a little bit into their third year playing. Trevor has, again, advanced. He qualified, of course, for counties. He then qualified for districts, and he then qualified for states. This is the first Dover young man to qualify for states since 1999. So it's been like 22 years since we had a boy. Now, we did the Mendel Camp girl qualified in, I believe, 2005. But it's quite an achievement. Trevor was close last year. It was up to the wire at the districts, and he didn't make it. And I was so happy for him this year that he got through the states. There's only 72 kids in the state that qualify for the golf championship matches, which are held here at Heritage in York. And I was really pleased that Trevor had the opportunity. This was my 7th year with the Snyder on the team. Next year will be my 8th year. I don't know what I'm going to do after that. But both these young men, they both work at Honey Run, so they get time to play golf after they work, and they make wise use of their time. I see them out practicing even when we don't have a official practice. They're there practicing, and I just admire that, and it's a pleasure to have these two young men on our golf team. So I congratulate them, and thank you all for recognizing them. Thank you.
Are they here tonight?
Alex Glatfelder, and he is this evening with his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Glatfelder. Alex, you want to come forward? We're also going to get a photo. Thank you. Perfect. Congratulations, Alex. Trevor Snyder. Trevor's parents are also here this evening. Thank you. Congratulations to our golfers. Thank you, Coach Jordan. Now I'll invite Coach Miller up to introduce our cross-country post-season competitors.
Thank you, Dr. Wiesling. So we had 3 athletes make the PIAA District 3 meet at Big Spring High School. We ran on Saturday, October 30th. So just to let you know a little bit about how we qualify, since COVID, it's actually more difficult to qualify for the District 3 meet. It used to be that all you had to do was run under a certain time, anytime throughout the season in order to make it. But since COVID, they've changed it. They take 5 teams from the YAIAA meet, and then they only take 15 to 20 additional individual qualifiers. So essentially, these 3 athletes qualified as individuals, and so that says something. They're among the best in York and Adams counties. So I want to call them up here. So come on up here, my 3. They're all here. So, and I'll tell you a little bit about them. So I'm going to embarrass them while they're standing here beside me. So I'm going to first talk about Summer. So Summer is a junior. This is actually her 3rd time. She's qualified every year for the District 3 meet. She actually placed 22nd at the YAIAA meet to allow her to qualify. And at a rainy, muddy meet in October at Big Spring, she actually bettered her time. We ran there earlier in the season at an invitational, and she actually was able to better her time from earlier in the season. And she was in the top half of a pack of 215 runners at that meet. So that was Summer's meet. Caleb, her brother, is a freshman, and this is obviously his first time qualifying because he is only a freshman. But I counted, and at the meet, there were only 11 other freshmen ahead of him. I don't know if you realize that. So he was 12th, the 12th freshman, so that bodes very well for Caleb in the future. He was consistently our top runner on the boys' team this year, so we're obviously expecting big things out of him from years to come. All right, and the last but not least is Camden Buell. He's a junior, and this was also Camden's first time qualifying for the district meet. Both Caleb and Camden actually ran against 236 other runners at the district meet, and he ended up averaging just over a 6-minute mile pace. So those of you that run, you know that's pretty fast. So he was actually our 2nd or 3rd runner this year. He and another one went back and forth. So again, we're expecting big things from him and qualifying next year as a senior. So obviously, we hope to have some more also join us next year, and I'm sure these three would enjoy some other people joining with them. So before I go, I just want to make sure I thank the district and especially our grounds crew. We had sort of a difficult year with rain and sometimes torrential rains and floods. We had rains that washed out one of our bridges on our course, and they were able to triage that like at the last minute and put it back in place so that we could have a course. So I really appreciate that. Just their willingness to step up and put turf down when it was really muddy and that kind of thing. So I just want to say thank you to the grounds crew for doing that for us. So I want to thank Caleb, or congratulate Caleb, Camden, and Summer for qualifying, and thank you very much for recognizing them.
Mr. and Dr. Hogan are here for Summer and Caleb, and Dr. Buell and Ms. Marzani are here as parents for Camden. Thank you very much. And families, and thank you for your time for coming this evening to recognize your children. I just very quickly also want to recognize some of our other individual athletes who, through coaching nominations, some of our sports get together and they recognize some of our top performing athletes in the league. So from our girls soccer program, Division I, Taylor Steininger made first team All-Star. She led all the Division I players in total points with 16 goals and 15 assists. And on the second team All-Star for our girls soccer program, Faith Sterner and Cece Miller. And Cece Miller was the only goalkeeper in Division I to be recognized as an All-Star athlete. Trevor Snyder, who was just recognized, was a unanimous selection for Division II All-Stars from the coaches in Division II. From our boys soccer program, Jagger James was named to both the senior all-star team and the first team league all-star for boys varsity soccer. For our varsity football team, on the offensive side, Eric Campbell, honorable mention for quarterback, Gavin Mullins, second team for wide receiver, and Andrew Snellbaker, honorable mention as center. On the defensive side, Gavin Semple, honorable mention for defensive end, Jordan Stewart, second team defensive tackle, Jacob Baker, honorable mention defensive tackle, Lucas Runk, honorable mention inside linebacker, and Gavin Mullins, first team for safety. And for specials teams, Braden Zirkle, honorable mention as punter. And for our girls varsity field hockey all-stars, recognized from Dover, Nicole Fisher, Brianna Grimm, and Emma Kennemore. So I appreciate this opportunity to share with all of you the success that our individual athletes and our teams have during each season. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Wiesling. Next, we'll move on to our next presentation, the middle school responsive classroom. Mrs. Huffnagel.
Good evening, everyone. This summer, we had the opportunity to send 14 members of our school staff to a responsive classroom training in Owings Mills, Maryland. It was a 4-day training. The workshop was lots of fun, and we learned a ton. We got to shuttle back and forth in our school vans, which was a great team-building experience as well. And we are in the early stages of implementation at the middle school. And I have with me this evening Miss Julie Sterner and Mrs. Renee Spar to talk a little bit about the implementation so far this year at the middle school.
All right, we are going to share the responsive classroom implementation, which is part of our responsive classroom. All right, so we're going to start with some words from our experts.
question? Okay.
What's your favorite part of the RAM?
The sharing questions, like the would you rather question, like would you rather go outside and do school outside or do it inside?
And why do you like those?
Because it's just fun to do, and yeah.
What is a RAM meeting?
A RAM meeting is when, like, you go into a classroom at the beginning and a teacher has a question up on the board to answer. You could do it with a partner, or maybe she could share it and you can raise your hand, and it helps us to know about everybody. So like if you don't know about everybody, it's kind of hard to make friends and do stuff with other people, like groups or something.
What is a RAM meeting?
As soon as I walk into homeroom, there is a message on the board that says the date, the agenda, if you have a 0 and missing in Skyward, please do that. And then there's a message, like an example is, today's National Ice Cream Day, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
And then what do you do with that question?
You just talk to your neighbors about it.
And you share?
And you share with your neighbors.
Why do you think we want you to share with your neighbors?
To get to know them.
And why is it good to get to know who's in your class?
Because then you might be partners, and because you might have to work on some type of project or assignment together, and you know that person, so then you'd be able to work with them.
What do you like most about the RAM meetings in the morning?
Where we would share about our day.
Okay, can you give me an example?
Like one time she asked us to share about our weekend, and the whole class would share about their weekends.
Okay, why is that good for you to share with your classmates about yourself?
So they can learn more about each other.
What is your favorite part of the RAM?
During Monday, she asked us what we did over the weekend and lets us answer.
Good, and why do you like that part?
Because she lets us like share with our classmates what we did, and if someone was really excited about something, they could have shared it.
What is your favorite part of the RAM in the morning?
My favorite part of the RAM in the morning is probably the questions and just sharing with the group.
And why do you like sharing with your classmates?
I don't know. I think it just helps me get to know them.
That's good. What do you like most about RAM meetings?
The sharing.
What do you like most about RAM meetings?
The sharing.
Why do you like to share?
It helps me get to know my classmates.
Can you think of an example?
So basically, if I had someone in my class, I learned that they like cheering, and I talked to them, and they tried out for the cheer team.
So you learned that your classmate liked cheerleading?
Yeah.
And then you talked to them about it, and then they ended up trying out with you?
Yep.
Very cool.
So we wanted to take a little bit of time to actually go over our overall purposes for our responsive advisory meetings that we hold each day during our homeroom. It's all about relationships, building relationships between the students in the classroom, but also building relationships between the teachers and the students as well. Making sure that the students come in every single day knowing that there is a positive community and a support system there each and every day. We also work on communication and social skills, academic skills. We do a lot of reflecting and goal setting as well. So this is a really great time for students to kind of be recognized as a whole child and really get that support system in place each and every day.
There are 4 parts to the morning RAM: the arrival, the announcements, the acknowledgments, and activity. And all of this happens within our homeroom period in the morning.
As soon as the students walk in, they're immediately a part of our daily RAM. They're greeted at the door each day by their teacher by name, recognizing their importance and acknowledging that they are part of the classroom and welcoming them for the day. As soon as the students come into the classroom, the announcements are posted on the board, gives them information for the day, helps them to have a good start, give them an idea as to what they can expect, reminders, expectations, things that they need to work on in the morning. We also have our school announcements broadcast live during our RAM as well, which is great.
We have 2 active parts to our RAM. The first is the acknowledgments, and this is done in a much smaller group, normally with a pair or a partner sitting next to them or a very small group. They get to greet the other person, and then they have a short activity where they have to think about something. Examples are love it or leave it, and give them a TV show or an animal. Do you love it or you leave it, and why? And then talk to your neighbor as to your reasoning and explain that. Or what's the news? Greet your partner and give them something that's new with you. It could be after a weekend, something you did, or something that's really in the news. So that's just a small activity where they're not really out of their seats. We then move to the activity part, and this is the whole class. This builds community within the entire group, and it usually relates to something that's a purpose for that daily meeting. And we have an example of a whole group activity that took place in Mrs. Janoski's class today.
Grades, the thought of the day for Tuesday, do the right thing even when no one's looking. I only have 2. It's called integrity. You're going to write neatly on them what you're grateful for. And then I have 2 staplers. We're going to use the staplers. Once you have it written, you want what you wrote on it. You make your little chain. And you're going to put 1 staple on this side and 1 staple on the other side so it's stable. Write what you're grateful for. Please help me. Give me. We are all crowded around here. Let's do this. Look up, would you?
Let me see. Ooh, good job.
Lizzie, you are not a star. I am. You are not. You're right, I'm a diamond. Are you a diamond in the sky? I'm a shining bright like a diamond.
Yeah, I got you. Not staple. Move your fingers. Staple. Move your fingers.
All right, what are we grateful for? This is a chain representing everything we're grateful for. We'll hang it in the room and it'll be a nice reminder. And being grateful really is equivalent to helping you be happier. Knowing what you have and appreciating is wonderful. So anybody wants to add more, we can continue to add more to it and we'll hang it up in the room. And we are
Proud to be Dover.
But it was great to see that whole class come together and share their ideas and work together. And Mrs. Janoski followed up with me this afternoon and said when the students came back for flex in the afternoon, they had more things that they were grateful for that they wanted to add to their chain, and they have a goal of getting the chain around the room. So just having that positivity in that room is fantastic with that activity.
This slide actually shows some of the RAM structures in some of our classrooms in our building. These are actual examples that teachers are using. So you can see some announcements, some activities, some messages, some different things that teachers are using, and it's appropriate to each grade level and classroom based on the students' needs. So each teacher structures theirs a different way according to what their students need, but each of them is going to have the same basic parts. On the next slide, we also sent out a brief survey to our staff to kind of get their feedback about how they feel the responsive advisory meeting structure is working and the benefits of it in their classroom. So a lot of this, again, is getting to build the relationships, getting students comfortable sharing information, being able to make sure that students feel comfortable to participate both with each other and with the teacher, and really, again, building those relationships, the focus.
Thank you for supporting this program and supporting our training this summer, because we are seeing some huge differences with our students and our teachers with the RAMs. Thank you.
Do our board members have any questions about that? Okay, thank you, ladies. All right, next we'll move on to Mr. Decker with 2022-23 transportation options related to elementary reconfiguration. Mr. Decker.
Good evening, Dr. Cartwright and the school board. Thanks for having me here this evening. We're going to start out with a PowerPoint presentation. And basically it's an update for you guys looking at how we can restructure our district. Currently, if we go to the second slide, you'll have a packet in front of you. It's current enrollment years. So this year we have Dover Elementary has 650 capable, 525 at Live, 750 at North Salem, 675 at Weigelstown. And the pink numbers show you the current numbers. So we have 56% of the building in Dover, 74% of the building occupied in Live, 37% in North Salem, and 61% in Weigelstown. So this is the current year, current enrollments. The next slide will show you current year. If we split the enrollments in a K2 situation to 3, 4, 5, we have discussed different methods of doing things, and that's on you guys. But if we do it, this is what I see happening. It levels out your playing field in all your buildings. They're all about 392 in Dover, 360 in Live, 340 in North Salem, 349 in Weigelstown. And below you'll see the numbers, how they correspond. But in order to do that, we would need to redistrict a little bit. We need to put some kids in different places. And we'll get to that as we go on. So the next slide will show you the current map of the district. So Dover being the green, North Salem being the red, Live being the purple, and blue being Weigelstown. If you see the blue, we have two little spots where Admire Springs and part of Cypress sort of hang out there in amongst the Live area. So that'll set us up for what I'm going to show you next. So in proposed next one, new boundaries. Basically, if we would keep it a K5 buildings, if we restructured a little bit, Dover would stay exactly the same. We have nothing growth in that area, and we're pretty much where we need to be. Live, we would take 57 students from that, we'll put it to 65%, and the 57 students would come from the Sunset Development, also Village Court, and I'll show you on the map later on where they come from. And it would also come from the west part of Live's territory. And North Salem would pick up 151 students from Live and Weigelstown. The 104 coming from Weigelstown would be in the Lauer Track, Admire Springs, and Cypress developments. So as you see, it levels out the buildings pretty much at 56% all the way across. Everybody's got a piece of the pie, except Weigelstown will be a little less. And at the end, I'll show you why I leave that a little light for the growth coming in within the district. So the next slide shows you we would split the boundaries. As we met the other week, we were talking about it. It's a perfect, so you're going to have Dover and Weigelstown being the split of 74, being your split north and south on two buildings. And if you do that, most of the growth is in your Weigelstown area. The wealth would go into Dover also. So both buildings would be equally representative as far as student body. Same way with Live in North Salem, it pretty much levels them out pretty well too. So the next map on there is basically showing where I'm getting Weigelstown. That's the new boundaries. It would be K5. So Dover, you see North Salem's a lot bigger, but you have a lot less students on the west side of the township. And then that would be taking some spots out of, next slide then, Amy, please. So there's Weigelstown area that we take the Lauer Track and Cypress and Admire Springs and would move them to North Salem. And the next map will show you the boundary of a little bit of Sunset Development, also the Village Court, and all of the west side, which that west side only has about 12 students, and that whole area is as vast as it is. So that would bring 57 students to the area. Next slide. So basically, where I got these numbers from, here's Dover Township as a whole, and on there it shows the current developments. So if you go to the last page of your slide, you'll see a chart that shows you the proposed developments and the growth projections from the township for the next 5 years. They're predicting we will grow by about 322 students, or 1,114 buildings that they have permitted for the next 5 years. That's if we go as way we are and the economy stays as strong as it is. But the ones in yellow are pretty much completed or going to get started. The biggest one that affects Weigelstown the most would be the Seasons development. Stage 1 is done. Stage 2 has started already. And if you're not familiar with that, that's down on Fox Run Road. It borders part of Virginia Avenue and that whole section there. If you pull up the Google map, you'll see a barren spot. That's all going to be housing. And there's 3 more phases to go with that. And if you're not familiar where all these things are, Copper Chase is down by Honey Run. Dover Highlands will be the buildings right behind the high school here. Norma's Ridge will be on the corner of Fox Run and Canal. And the Seasons is there behind Weigelstown on Fox Run. Brownstone is behind Max down here on 74 with Donwood. Fountain Rocks over off Cardinal Lane. And the McNaughton Farm is down off of Bull Road. That will be senior living right there across from Dollar General, where they put Dollar General in. They have a road in there now. That'll connect to Shadowbrook. So in getting the numbers, the most of the growth comes through Weigelstown. That's why we leave it a little light now for the growth coming in the next 5 years. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Mike. It's a lot to digest as we look forward down the road here with what we're thinking about with the reconfiguration. So there's a lot of good information here for us to consider as we move through this. It's pretty eye-opening to see 1,100 dwelling units in 5 years. That's a lot to add in here.
I figured that information would be helpful when you try and make a decision. And when we made the decisions to do what we came out with was the fact that we're using 74 as a dividing line, and it's only going to affect 10% of the primary kids. So 10% of the student body will be affected by the move, which is pretty minimal.
Right. Okay.
So
thank you.
All right. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
I do have
Mike,
a question. Last month, we had talked about possible reconfiguration, and the comment was made that if we did a reconfiguration at the elementary level, that you felt that you could adjust the busing and it wouldn't.
Yeah, you wouldn't get any more impact. You would have no more busing than you have now. We can absorb what you're doing. We would take each school and give them their own sets of buses with the number of buses we have. I don't see that increasing at all. And it would increase your mileage a little bit too, so that from a reimbursement side, that helps. So as far as a cost factor, it's actually going to be a little bit better for you than it is currently.
Steve, I want to thank you for asking that question, because I was gonna grab Mike before he left to ask what the cost impact was in making this change. So essentially, there'd be no buses added, but to accomplish this goal, there would also be no buses to be taken away. So would you kind of term it as a cost neutral from what we're currently operating?
Yes, other than the fact you might see a little bit more in your reimbursement side because you're going to be traveling more miles. But basically, it would be a wash as far as you wouldn't see any cost increase on your transportation side.
Mike, would you envision staggering the dismissal times if we would do this kind of a structure?
If you would do this structure, no, we would not. And that's why I'm saying we dedicate buses to each building. Same amount of buses, we could keep the bell times the same, which would also help, because some of the kids would get home in time to get their siblings off the bus, that kind of thing. So if you would restructure that way, but if you go ahead and just leave it the way it is and still have to do a little bit of boundary moving just to level out the buildings, it wouldn't change anything. But as far as putting buses at each building, you wouldn't have to change your bell times. Nothing would change there.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, are you currently utilizing that strategy in the middle school and high school runs?
We are. We've been really successful of putting 2 sets of buses at both buildings and keeping it time-wise. I think that they get in better time, they're leaving in better time. We're not, tying up the intersection down here with 30 buses back and forth. It's been utilized pretty well, and they're staggered by about 15 minutes.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Mike.
All right, thanks so much.
Okay, this takes us into our first public comment period. This is a 30-minute period. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker for anything on or off of the agenda. So we did have one person pre-register to speak tonight, and that is Stephanie Vandecastle. Stephanie, are you in the room? Okay, Stephanie is not here, so if there's anybody else, if you'd please approach the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Shorter than him. Let's move that down. Is it okay if I take this down so it's a little easier to speak?
Yes.
Thank you. My name's Michelle Dillon, and I live at 971 Rollers Church Road in Dover. I'm here tonight mainly because I know our health and safety plan is always on the agenda as of late. I know we had a vote the last meeting to make the mask optional once the mandate is lifted. I do realize there's been some confusion in the last week or so with court proceedings that have been going on, but I did want to come here tonight because when you see health and safety listed as something that's on the agenda but have no prerequisite as to what's going to be discussed, I thought it would be important to be here just in case. So I'm not sure what's going to be discussed from Mr. Pratt, but my concern is, based on the decision made today that the mandate will be lifted December 4th, I just am wondering what the board is thinking, what Mr. Pratt is thinking, because every email I get says, per the advice of the solicitor, so I'm assuming he has some say in this. But my main concern is that we're not bouncing back and forth. I'd like to know, as a constituent of the township, that what are the future plans? Are we going to stick with what we said? Is there going to be future votes? I'm just kind of not sure what's going to be happening here. And I also would like to know, this past week, even though it was wishy-washy, I do know that staff were not permitted to remove their masks if need be. And as far as I was under the assumption that the last meeting that we voted, that said students and staff. So again, is this a contingency on whatever is discussed with the superintendent or the admin, or are we going to do across the board? I'd like to know the black and white, where you all stand, and where we move on from here. Thank you.
I can tell you, Michelle, nothing is changing tonight. There is no vote on the agenda for tonight. It's just for Mr. Pratt to give us an update as to what's going on in the court systems and what's happening there.
Okay, I appreciate that.
The health and safety plan will be on the agenda every month.
Correct.
Because the board can assess on a monthly basis if there's a change that's necessary to whatever our previous vote had been. We can re-look at that vote and do a different vote.
So since the mandate is being lifted December 4th per the court, is that something that you will do any additional discussion beforehand, or does the rule apply from the last vote into December's meeting,
That
I
would
guess.
still apply.
Okay.
Yeah, we would, as of at this point, we would go mask optional.
Okay, now,
as
does
of
that,
those
is it mask optional students and staff, or is it students only?
We'd have to look at that, Dr. Cartwright. Students and staff.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So, and again, like I said, this could change, you know, too, if we get into a situation
do
where we see
realize that, yes.
buildings are shutting down and that kind of stuff, we could reassess on a monthly
I
basis.
gotcha. Would you potentially look at, I know we had a survey prior to the last, big vote. I'm just curious, I know you're saying numbers and things like that. Is there going to be a baseline for what your ideals are?
I can't establish that at this point. And we'll have new board members at that point, too. So, you know, things could change once you have new board members in place as well.
Right,
Okay.
yeah. Is that something the superintendent is also involved in then? Is her recommendation part of that, or Mr. Pratt's?
It's a whole team here.
Okay.
Everybody looks at it together.
Okay.
Okay,
Will we
thank
get
you.
knowledge beforehand if there's going to be another?
Everything's posted publicly on the agenda.
Well, not necessarily, because a lot of times when the issue is brought up, there's been a lot of PowerPoints that are brought to the meeting that we don't get to see beforehand to know what's on the agenda. It just says health and safety plan. So it's just, I'm just saying, like, it would be helpful to know ahead of time, oh, well, this is going to be discussed. That way, you know, when you do public comment ahead of time, people would like to comment ahead of time. But if you discuss the health and safety plan right after you do first public comment, then sometimes we're kind of behind the 8 ball.
If there's any motion to make any changes, it's publicly listed on the agenda as to what that motion will be at that meeting.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, how you guys doing? Tyler Kirkpatrick, 4430 West Canal. I had 2 questions, both kind of around the redistricting. If you guys do go with the change in grade, I think was discussed, pardon my ignorance, I'm not fully in the loop on that, but if you did, we're in North Salem, and we've got a kid right now in kindergarten and one in first. So once we get to the age where they'd be split between schools, we're kind of concerned what the busing pattern would be. Is that staggered, or would they both get dropped off probably around the same time? It's a difficult kind of juggle for us because daycare in that area is very minimal. So we're just trying to figure that aspect out. If that becomes I don't know if you guys go the other route, that is probably not a hindrance on us, but I just wanted to know kind of if it does go the grade split route, if that's something that's been discussed.
We are just in the very early stages of this, so I don't really have any answers on the reconfiguration at this point.
Okay, and then my other question would be, if you do the boundary reconfiguration, would that change mill rates or property taxes, not property tax, but school taxes for people in those districts, or is that pretty minimal that it probably would not impact that?
That doesn't have anything to do with your millage rates as far as where your properties are aligned.
Okay,
So,
very
okay.
good. Yep, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Erin Mee, and I live at 3700 Wheatland Drive in Dover. I'm also here because of the reconfiguration, and I'm just wondering if, we are going to have a vote in that or a say in that, or is that going to be decided by the school board? I'm in a similar situation. I have 4 young kids, 6, 5, and 3-year-old twins, so I'm kind of concerned when they're all at different schools and, pick up, that kind of thing. So I'm just wondering if this is going to be a decision made by the school board, or if us as, community members have a say in it.
It's a decision that would eventually be made by the board itself, but with the input of the community at the time. And this is the exact kind of opportunity you have to share your thoughts and opinions so that we can all consider that information as we move forward.
Okay.
And again, like I stated, we are in the very early stages of this, so we don't know where we're headed with this at this point.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into our approval of the minutes. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 19th, 2021 board meeting.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Allman? Motion carries. Next, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the October 21st, 2021 Board Planning Meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Almond? And the motion carries. Okay. Moving on to the health and safety plan now, we have an update from Solicitor Pratt on the Commonwealth Court ruling.
Thank you, Mr. Eifert. Prior to about 4 o'clock today, I thought I was just going to come and talk to you about the decision which happened last week, where the Commonwealth Court deemed that the mask mandate was void and unenforceable. And based on the fact that that decision came out and there was no timeline as to when they were going to lift the mandate, that it was immediate, there's a lot of confusion that came out of the decision as to what needed to be done. At that point in time, our advice had been that we need to follow the health and safety plan until there was a determination that the state was going to file an appeal. And so that led to a lot of confusion for about all 500 school districts as what they should do in regard to the masking. Once we had found out that the state filed an appeal to the state Supreme Court, at that point in time, what happens is it's called supersedious, for those of you who like the legal jargon, and that puts a stay on the decision and reverts back to the masking order. And therefore, the state notified everybody that they should adhere to the masking order and not make any changes. And a number of districts did adhere to that masking order. What happened after that was that at that point in time in the court proceeding, what can happen is the winner, and in this case the petitioners in this matter, they can file a request to the Commonwealth Court to lift the stay, and so that the masking mandate could be removed completely while the appeal is pending. And during the end of last week and the beginning of this week, there was those filings. There was an answer from the state, and this afternoon, the Commonwealth Court did determine to lift the stay and to make a decision that on December 4th, the masking mandate will be lifted. Until December 4th, we are to follow the masking order. And we'll wait till that time for it to occur. Going, Mr. Eifert, back to some of your concerns of some changes that may happen. Just because the Commonwealth Court stated that the mask mandate will be lifted on December 4th does not mean that's the end of this matter. What can happen between now and December 4th is that the governor, if he so decides, can do an authorized emergency rulemaking, which the Commonwealth Court recognized he has the ability to do, and to implement a new masking order. Or he could even enter another statewide COVID-19 emergency declaration, and if he does that, that is what the would only be for 21 days. So we don't know what he's going to do, but the court has given the governor enough time by making the masking mandate to be lifted on December 4th to file the appropriate documents to do either one of those decisions. And also, I mean, it's going to be interesting to find out what happens, because he's already announced that he is going to remove the mask mandate on January 17th of next year, so that we already had that coming forward. So it's one of those situations where the governor does have some options if he wants to again, implement a new mask order, or to put into a for emergency declaration and continue it till his designated January 17th time period. We do not know whether or not this matter is going to be expedited in front of the state Supreme Court. It could be very similar to what the Commonwealth Court did, where they expedited the case and fit it into their docket as soon as possible, and the Pennsylvania Supreme Court could do the same. But at this point in time, we know that December 4th, the masking mandate will be lifted unless the governor does take one or two stances of either a rulemaking to implement a new mask order or to do emergency declaration. Take any questions that you may have at this point in time.
Anybody? Okay, thank you, Mr. Pratt. Okay, we'll move on now to our consent agenda. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve all items listed under the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Dr. Cartwright, could you go down and give us some highlights, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We have about 25 students graduating early at the end of the first semester. We have a donation for the students' lunch debt from the Calvary Lutheran Church, so we thank them very much for that. And you'll see 13 revised policies. In June, I presented an aggressive plan to update 157 policies in 6 months, and we are quite close to achieving that goal. We have revised or added 107 new policies since June. We've deleted 13 or so at the recommendation of PSBA. We have about 20 left to review or revise in January and or February. We routinely receive PSBA updates and policies, new policies to add as well, so that number is an estimate and is always changing. The next project after that will be related to policies. We'll be creating administrative regulations to accompany each of our policies. That is the end of my highlights. Thank you.
Any questions or discussion from anybody on any of these items? Mr. Ulmer, on the donation from Calvary Lutheran Church, for which we certainly thank them, what is our current debt for student lunch?
That is a very good question. For the last 2 school years, we've been operating, last school year and this current school year, we're operating on a universal free lunch program. So we're really trying to apply the debt and the contributions that we get to anything that's on the books, and trying to get students to a place where they can be starting post-COVID with a clean slate. So the short answer to the question is I don't know the exact figure. We did forgive, I believe, around $10,000 of what we felt was going to be deemed uncollectible debt, students that moved away and we weren't going to be able, so you forgave that during last fiscal year. So right now we're working on, and I can get a firm number for you, but right now we're working on dwindling it down, and this contribution will go towards some of that effort.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, hearing none, Mrs. Almond. The motion carries. Okay, moving on to facilities and safe and supportive schools, I'll entertain a motion to approve the high school change order number 4 for York Excavating Company.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Questions or discussion? Hearing none, Mrs. Almond. And the motion carries. Okay, Unity Council, Mr. Deschaux.
I don't have anything to report.
Okay, Mr. Emig, York Adams Academy.
Currently, the former superintendent of record has retired and has moved on, and our current superintendent of record comes from Eastern.
Any questions for Mr. Emig? Okay, Mr. DeLauder, York County School of Technology.
Just a couple things. At the last meeting, just as a background, every month teachers at the County School of Technology nominate students to be part of the Student of the Month. And for October, Dover did have one student who was nominated, and his name was Milton Decker. He's a senior in the automotive technology program. And basically what they do is they just give a brief synopsis of the reasons for his nomination. So I just thought it's a neat thing to have a Dover student there get nominated for the year, or for the month, I'm sorry. And then, again, just a reminder, it's budget season for the School of Technology. The budget was presented to the York County superintendents on October 1st. And I believe there was no, from my understanding, there was no dissent with the current budget. And just a reminder, we had talked about this in the past. We are looking at a 4.25% tuition increase for students, of which 2% of that is related to the health insurance premium increases. I think you remember me talking last year about some of the high claims that the School of Technology had been having over the last couple of years that really put a hurting on the budget there for the year. So we're trying to make up for that with that. So it's going to come to us, hopefully, for a vote in January for us to approve that budget. From a budgetary standpoint, it's pretty much a level budget as far as expenditures, other than the increase in the health insurance premiums. That's pretty much all I got.
Any questions for Mr. DeLauder? Okay, Dr. Cartwright, LIU.
I have no report this evening.
Okay, Mr. Rawhauser, Legislative and York Learning Center.
No report.
Okay, Mrs. Britton is not with us, so we'll move on to Mrs. Herman, Dover Industrial Development Authority.
Okay, I have asked Mr. Benton to report out on this because he was at the job fair, which I was not there, so he has all the info.
Good evening. Yeah, the ICDC is a part of the Dover Area Business Association, and they had a job fair that was held in the community center. They had 29 employers there. We were actually one as our district looking for custodial staff to fill in. We had Pixel there, which used to be the old Gladfelder. We had Harley Davidson. There was a lot of different types of companies represented. We actually only had 26 people come in looking for a job. So the turnout wasn't as good as what we were expecting. It was about the same as what Spring Grove had the month before, and they are deciding whether or not they will be doing another one in West York. So tomorrow night's meeting, we'll actually have, we'll be discussing that, if we'll be holding one in West Manchester Township job fair, okay, in West York. So
Thank you,
there's
Mr. Benton.
plenty of jobs. We just need people to come out.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Benton? Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Cartwright.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a great deal to celebrate this month. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Mrs. Huffnagel and the middle school teachers and students for their presentation on responsive classrooms. These practices are obviously transformative. Again, it is refreshing to hear from students and staff and see them back in our meetings, as well as our senior student representative. I'd also like to thank Mr. Decker for his presentation on transportation. And I'd like to announce the number of parent-teacher conferences that were held at the end of October by our professionals. 2,458 parent-teacher conferences in 2.5 days. And we all know this, but I think it's great to announce this publicly. Our official and long-awaited grand opening was a success, and we owe many, many thanks to countless school board and staff members who made the event on October 30th a success, from custodial and maintenance staff to audio and visual music experts, our SROs, our board members, our administrative team. A lot of presence and a lot of assistance and a lot of work went into planning the day. And 3 of our Dover graduates and leaders, Tuesday Huffnagel, class of 99, Chuck Benton, class of 92, and Mr. Eifert, class of 87, were speakers, and it was just a really great day all around. So thanks to everyone for their efforts. This week is American Education Week. This is an opportunity to celebrate public education and honor and thank all of the individuals who are making a difference by ensuring that every child receives a quality education. Dover Area School District thanks every one of our employees, in addition to our volunteers, for what they do for our students every day. Every single employee who works with and/or positively impacts our students, directly or indirectly, makes a difference and plays a significant role in providing that quality education. Also announcing that our drama department will be presenting Little Women this weekend, Friday and Saturday evenings in the high school auditorium at 7 p.m. And last but not least, I'd like to thank our outgoing board members, Mr. Cook, Mr. DeLauder, and Mrs. Murphy, for their service to the school district. Your dedication, commitment, and engagement have indeed made the district a better place for our staff and students. Thank you, and we'll miss you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments for our board members tonight from the miscellaneous category?
Yes. I want to thank Mr. DeLauder, Mr. Cook, and Mrs. Murphy for her stepping up this summer, and the two other ones that retired. We ran together 8 years ago, and I'm still here, and they can retire now and enjoy their benefits.
Anybody else?
I would like to echo Dr. Cartwright's recognition of the school during National Education Week. Although my time as school board director is coming to an end, that doesn't mean I'm not involved with the school. I'm involved with the Dover Eagle Foundation, and for the last couple years we've tried to bring a resurgence to this with raising money to enhance teacher grants and student scholarships. And even though we've dealt with COVID, as everyone has the last couple years, we were able this year to increase our number of grants and scholarships for students. And this morning, the foundation was thrilled to be able to support public education and the Dover Dover teachers, as 6 teachers were awarded grants for enhancing their classroom experience above and beyond what the district can provide. Teachers applied for the grants through a process that began in September, and then the requests were recently vetted through our process. And we were thrilled to recognize all the Dover staff for their continued commitment, but especially the 6 that I'm going to name for receiving the Foundation's Fall Semester Award. Tara Huntsberry at Libe Elementary received $300 for a seat back project. Ashley Tice at the intermediate school, $450 for a global read aloud project, which will take place next fall, so she'll have time to gather what she needs for that. Samantha Barnes and Wendy Bear at Weigelstown Elementary, $600 for a STEM Makerspace Lego Building Center. Josh Brandstatter at the Dover High School, $500 for trail cams for wildlife. And Corey Houlihan at Libe Elementary, $600 to continue her development of her elementary STEM lab at Libe. So we are very excited about what we were able to do for the fall semester, and then our process begins again in January, where teachers will apply for our spring allocation of funds. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share the good things that are continuing to happen in the classroom. And I appreciate the time I've had to serve in this capacity at the board. And thank you to everyone who was a big brother and big sister and helped me through this.
Thank you. Anybody else?
As was mentioned, this is my last official board meeting, and I wanted to share some thoughts with you as my term on this board ends. Tonight marks my final meeting as a school board, Dover Area School Board Director. It's been, for the most part, an enjoyable 8 years, and I am grateful to have had this experience. It hasn't always been smooth sailing, but this opportunity has afforded me the chance to stay connected to this district following my children's graduation. And again, for the most part, I have been glad to be an instrument of both change and stability. Over the course of my time on this board, a lot of changes have taken place with administrative personnel. Dr. Cartwright, you're the 5th superintendent since I was sworn in. But with that change, or with those changes, has come amazingly increased stability. I have particularly enjoyed the refocus to, quote, putting the students first, with student presentations at board meetings and the chance to personally congratulate every graduating senior among my most treasured privileges. Excuse me. I cannot express enough how grateful I am to have been a part of the new high school construction, a project that was long overdue and one that has touched every building in our district. My only regret is that its completion coincided with an unprecedented pandemic, and our long-anticipated opening of the building was anticlimactic and delayed. Thankfully, we have had the opportunity to do that, as Dr. Cartwright just shared. But I am hopeful and confident that our community and our families are now set for a bright future, especially knowing that so many new families are being attracted to the Dover area. I've also enjoyed working with this board and our business administration team to help bring financial stability to our district, to our community. Prior years of maximum tax increases were replaced with multiple years of no tax increase, and now with the new construction, just a minimal increase. Not everything has been a bed of roses. The loss of Washington Township students and families still disturbs me greatly, and the divide that we are currently experiencing related to pandemic rules and requirements sometimes has made this volunteer position very heart-wrenching. Similarly to our current state of affairs, my first term as director began at a time of community angst and uncertainty. I think back to a bit of advice that I, along with others who were beginning their term, was given at that time. I guess I really needed to hear this because I was pretty frustrated at that time, as I recall. Quote, this advice was, quote, keep the plow in the barn until you have had a chance to listen and learn. There will be plenty of time for plowing later, end quote. It was good advice, and I would encourage those who are joining the board to do the same. In this time of uncertainty, and even with the differences of opinion on current events on the table, I want to thank my fellow board members for this experience. You have been wonderful to work with. Even if we don't always arrive at our decisions from the same pathways, I know that every single one of you has the students, staff, and community as best interests at heart. Finally, I want to express my appreciation to the students, the staff, the community for your support. I've seen firsthand the talent of our students and staff, and we can all be very proud of that. We need to be all about the things that welcome students and families into Dover's public school setting, and be careful not to encourage families to look elsewhere for their education. Best wishes to the newly elected representatives to this board next month. I've kept the seat warm for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else tonight? Okay, I just want to echo everybody else's comments to our 3 outgoing board members. It's truly been a pleasure to serve with each of you. This is a difficult role to sit in. You don't know what it's like until you sit at this table. And I consider all 3 of you lifelong friends, so I wish you all the best as you move on. But don't disappear on us. Keep coming back here, being part of things. I know you all are active volunteers in the school community, doing great things for other organizations within the district. So we're looking forward to you still being around and doing that. So thank you very much. And I know this is not your last meeting tonight. You have one more to get through on Thursday. Unfortunately, Mr. Cook can't be here Thursday with us, but I wish you all the best in your future endeavors here. So. Okay, that will bring us to our last public comment period. This is a 2-minute period for items on or off of the agenda. If you have anything you would like to make a comment on, please come to the podium. Okay, seeing none, future meetings. Thursday, November 18th, this Thursday, we have our committee meetings at 6:00 p.m. and our board planning meeting at 7 p.m. here in the high school. And then on December 6th, 2021, we have our board reorganization meeting at 6:30 p.m. here. So if there's no further business from the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.